Good evening and welcome to the LaRouche Organization Weekly Battle Report. Today is Wednesday, August 13th. I'm Michelle Aaron, your host. Tonight's report will cover organizing activity within and through the United States, including what we did today in Washington, D.C., organizing in Germany, Mexico, Sweden, France, Russia, and Brazil, as the international LaRouche movement mobilizes to create a world of peace and development. With last Friday's announcement of a meeting this Friday in Alaska between the U.S. and Russian heads of state, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, the international LaRouche movement has mobilized to not merely defend this meeting from potential sabotage, but to put on the table a tremendous proposal. As voiced by Schiller Institute founder Helga Zepp-LaRouche in an open letter issued this past Sunday, August 10th, to the presidents of the United States, Russia, and carbon copied to Chinese President Xi Jinping, the two world leaders in their Alaska meeting have not only the potential to bring to an end the war in Ukraine and thereby take off the table one of the world's nuclear war triggers, but could put on the table a beautiful vision for the future with an agreement to develop the Bering Strait as a rail and tunnel project that would connect the Americas directly with Eurasia. The concept for this project goes back to the time of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln and his implicit collaborator, Russian scientist Dmitry Mendeleev. The LaRouche movement has championed the conception for decades. You see here in this image Mrs. Zepp-LaRouche alongside American engineer and infrastructure expert Hal Cooper as they hold up an artist's rendition commissioned by Cooper of the North American entrance to the tunnel now connecting these two continents. Helga's open letter is accompanied by a whole package of articles by Executive Intelligence Review on the Bering Strait projects. Links to Helga's open letter and that package of materials are in the video description or go to the Schiller Institute website. Let's go now to a report from Jerry Belsky in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill just hours ago on how they got out this proposal today.
All right, go.
Yes, hello, this is Gerald Belsky with the LaRouche Organization and the Schiller Institute. I'm here in front of the U.S. Capitol, and I'm with a team of 7 other people, and we are distributing to every office in the House and the Senate a package which includes the press release of the Schiller Institute announcing that Helga Zepp-LaRouche has called for Trump and Putin to discuss building the Bering Strait tunnel as the first step to economic cooperation at this summit that is going to occur Friday. And the point that she's making is that in order to stop a war, you have to have an economic cooperation policy. And that's the message we're getting out to the Congress, that this has to be discussed. We know the Russians are very interested in it, and we're also making clear that this opens the door to massive economic cooperation throughout Asia, including with China, to build the Eurasian land bridge. That is where we got to go if we don't want war. But we're also making the point with the Russiagate expose, the motive behind Russiagate, actually, the beyond treason, the motive behind Russiagate, that the British financial elites and their foreign policy establishment, going back to the British Empire, which is still in place today, that they are trying to start a war with Russia, which is why they went after Trump in 2016 and why they are trying to sabotage this new economic arrangement which could emerge out of this summit. So we want to make it clear that these are not two separate issues, but they're directly related. And that is the question of whether we're going to have a nuclear war or not. And if we're not, then we have to have economic cooperation. Now, the first step would be this Bering Strait tunnel. A lot of people here in Congress are not here. A lot of the staff is gone. It's out of session. But we're getting it to every office, and we're making clear that anybody involved in foreign policy issues should be looking at this and advising their congressman. I know that Kunle here had talked to one chief of staff who was interested. We know that Neil has talked to a legislative director. We know that other people on our team have intersected various staff members. By and large, we're only talking to the lower level staff, but people are interested in what we have to say. We also met with the Republican conference office that was very interested and said they would get it to their foreign policy staff. So that's the message we're getting out here, that this has to be discussed. It's a new idea. We're catching people sort of by surprise because this is not on their radar screen. We're putting it on the radar screen. And that the Russians, we're making it clear, the Russians are very interested in this type of economic cooperation, that Helga had been interviewed by TASS on this. It's already being discussed, and this is time to make this shift happen. We change this, and we change the world. We move it in a whole new direction, potentially. Thank you.
LaRouche Organization President Diane Serre has put out their proposal in a number of social media items, including on TikTok, with her Monday and Tuesday updates, each getting over 50,000 views so far. Here's a short excerpt from her Monday TikTok, where she indicates that there really is a potential in this meeting, that Trump does not appear to be going along with the British Empire plan of divide and conquer, pit the United States against Russia. And you'll hear that Diane asks that you, the viewer, act to help us in this effort.
Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, you know, the caveman guy with the crazy hair, who was bragging in Taiwan that finally they've gotten Trump to understand that you cannot be chummy with Putin, and that if the United States is on board, Russia can be defeated. Well, Trump seems to not be going along with the British plan, in that he and President Putin will be meeting in Alaska 5 days from now, this Friday. This is a very important meeting. The British are doing all in their power, along with their European friends, particularly France and Britain, to sabotage this meeting. So the meeting between President Trump and President Putin has enormous potential. Helga Zepp-LaRouche has proposed that they put on the table at long last the Bering Strait tunnel, which would open up Siberia for real development. That could be done jointly by the United States, Russia, and others. There's enormous potential there for the good of mankind. New cities could be built. We could finally get a functioning transcontinental railroad in the United States. We had one, but it's been dismantled. Let's revive it. So the potential is great. The danger for sabotage is great. So call your congressman, call the White House. This summit must work. This war must be brought to an end, and certainly no more weapons to
Ukraine. Sorry, I cut that video off too soon. So thank you, Diane. Now, this open call by Mrs. Zepp-LaRouche has already created resonance. It has been covered on many news platforms. You see here a screenshot of an article covering the interview conducted with Mrs. Zepp-LaRouche by the Russian news agency TASS on Monday, titled, "Expert Zepp-LaRouche says Russia and the US could build a tunnel under the Bering Strait." Then on Tuesday, Marcos de Oliveira, the editor of Brazil's influential business site Monitor Mercantil, he covered the proposal in his daily column, and he comments in his column, the question is, what can be done to achieve lasting peace beyond simply reaching an agreement to end conflicts? In Mexico, Zepp-LaRouche's Alaska Summit call has also been published on the website Voces de Periodistas, which is followed by national journalists, many from the alternative media. And it's also included at the end of an August 10th opinion column in Sonora's Dossier Politico by Hugo Lopez Ochoa, and that one is titled New Opportunity for Peace Emerges. Zepp-LaRouche calls for tripartite meeting, Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping. So as Diane mentioned, the viewers of this program are called upon to join in this week's mobilization now. Call the White House, call your representatives, social leaders, religious figures, everyone you can think of to put support behind the idea that Friday's Alaska summit between the United States and Russia could become the launching pad of a generational project, the development of the Bering Strait as a point of connectivity between our continents. We now have 2 battle reports on activities surrounding remembrances of last week's 80th anniversaries of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. First, in Germany, we have a statement from Jonathan Thron, who was among our members who attended a commemoration ceremony for the bombings on August 8th, a commemoration of the Frieden-Glocken-Gesellschaft Peace Bell Society. Jonathan will explain what we did there, and then we will see a very brief video of the crowd singing a peace song titled Haiwa, which is a Japanese word that means peace or harmony. And then there will be a couple photos to give a sense of the crowd.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Thron. I'm part of BÜSO, Bürgerrechtsbewegung Solidarität in Germany. We are part of the international LaRouche movement. And today we have distributed this leaflet, which is the German translation of the introduction to the TLO white paper, Worse Than Treason, the actual motive behind Russiagate, where we say to the point that it is the British Empire which is keeping USA on the war footing against Russia and which keeps Trump from having peace with Russia. So we have distributed our leaflet here in Berlin, in the Volkspark Friedrichshain, at an event by the Friedensglockengesellschaft Peace Bell Society. And they have remembered on the atomic droppings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki exactly 80 years ago. The war against Russia would lead, and will certainly lead when it's not stopped, to nuclear war. So we must stop that. And we are active. Please join. We need much more people to fight. Thank you.
And then we have the 2 photos just to give you a sense that there were a bunch of people there, which was the case. Great. Now to Sweden. On Hiroshima Day, August 6th, there was a demonstration in Stockholm against nuclear weapons. We hear some of an interview with Schiller Institute's Ulf Sandmark being interviewed. Ulf was the moderator at this event. Speakers at the meeting called upon the Swedish government to stop mindlessly fueling the escalation and open a dialogue with Russia to find a way of peaceful coexistence. And you'll see a little short video of the participants there singing a Swedish peace song. And the interview of Ulf was part of a video report that is available. It has over 1,000 views of the video report of the whole event. So another important intervention made last week were the presentations and discussion amongst the participants of the 114th meeting of the International Peace Coalition. Several important themes of discussion were put forward. So one was from Professor Steve Starr, a nuclear weapons expert. He gave a presentation titled, "World War III has already begun. Can we stop it before it goes nuclear?" We have excerpted the full presentation and include it in a link in the video description. Also, Eduardo Siqueira, a Brazilian researcher and analyst, gave an enlightening and provocative picture from Brazil, a nation that has recently received punishing old paradigm tariffs from the Trump administration, but which nation is in reality coming into its own as a part of the BRICS. BRICS begins with Brazil and is a part of that global development process. Very interesting presentation. Now you see here 3 members of the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. Also, Mrs. Zepp-LaRouche is in this image. The gentleman, Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst. Bill Binney, 32 years at the National Security Agency and the former technical director. And NSA whistleblower, and also Kirk Wiebe, a retired analyst at the NSA. Bill Binney reviewed in the meeting the airtight analysis and conclusions of the VIPs that there was never a Russian hack of the DNC. One of the many slanders designed to put a wedge between the United States and Russia. And the 3 gentlemen reviewed in their discussion other ways that the NSA and other intelligence agencies, with the collaboration of the British GCHQ intelligence agency, are being weaponized against the American population. It is well worth watching this program in its entirety. We're going to watch now a contribution from guest speaker Anthony Aguilar, a former U.S. Army soldier who recently worked as a security subcontractor for the Israeli and U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is now in the position of being the responsible party for delivering aid. Aguilar has given many interviews in recent weeks, and here we'll see a brief segment from his participation with the IPC, where he warns that about the process of dehumanization, how we look at human beings, that this dehumanization leads to war crimes.
I was hired as an independent security contractor for UG Solutions, which is a subcontract under a greater contract called Safe Reach Solutions, which is the for-profit contract mechanism under the what many have heard as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is kind of the umbrella organization, but the organizations, the companies that are actually executing this humanitarian assistance, humanitarian aid in Gaza are absolutely for-profit contract companies. They're making money. So I've said it on many platforms in terms of what I've witnessed in terms of war crimes, and I get a lot of pushback from people saying, well, that what you've described aren't war crimes. Well, what I've described are exactly war crimes. Is there a threat in Gaza? The threat of Hamas, the threat of an enemy? There absolutely is. I have never discredited or discounted that. However, there's also a very large unarmed civilian population that is starving, and they are on the brink of famine if they haven't already crossed into what could be described as famine. That that is a fact. And anybody that says that there isn't mass starvation or there isn't starving people in Gaza, that is irresponsible rhetoric, and that should be condemned. There is starvation. War crimes that are being committed when you have Israeli Defense Force soldiers and you have UG Solutions, American contractors who, mind you, are in the country on a tourist visa, who are firing at the crowd to control their movement or firing at the crowd to keep them back from a certain area. I mean, that's just one example. Simply that firing live ammunition, targeting at an unarmed population for the means of controlling them is a war crime. So what all this has shown me, having been there, having been on the ground in Gaza, is that it seems to me that there's an active effort, an active campaign, if you will, to dehumanize the population, to label the entire population as the enemy, and then to further dehumanize the population through putting them in a position where they're literally begging for food. We've set up these distribution sites in areas that, in order to reach them, the Palestinians have to travel many kilometers to get there. And when they do get there, it is a mass free-for-all fight for survival, if you will, to get food on these locations, which further dehumanizes the population. We are complicit in that. They are using American weapons. They are using American bombs. Now is the time for the United States to stand and hold accountable our ally, because if we do not, the world is going to hold us accountable right alongside of them, right alongside Israel, and it will not be to the benefit of Israel, the United States, and quite frankly, the world. And the thing is that we know this. We can see it. There's evidence, ample evidence. And again, not just from me, not just from one American that was there. And I share these stories with you, not as someone that read the newspaper or read an article and applied some kind of opine or opinion to it. I was there on the ground, seeing it with my own eyes, witnessing it firsthand.
And the full presentation that he gave is excerpted, and you can find a link to that in the video description. We have 2 more reports on our ideas getting out there into non-mainstream media. On July 28th and 30th, LaRouche movement leader from France, Jacques Cheminade, intervened very effectively in France in 2 key and in-depth interviews on 2 powerful non-mainstream TV networks. The one that we're seeing here is an interview with Pierre Bergerault, the host of the political economy desk of TV Liberté, in an interview titled "The Liberation War Against the Oligarchy." This interview has currently over 64,000 views. In it, Cheminade was able to discuss fundamental issues, discuss LaRouche, the nation state as a mediation to the universal. At the outset, the interviewer asked Cheminade to define economy. Cheminade said, "It's not buying cheap and selling dear for a profit. It's not currency either." George Boris, the advisor to the Free French forces, had said, "If the state doesn't control the currency will control the state." Cheminade continued, "I am anti-monetarist. The economy is the development of the creative capacity of man through culture, the history of his country, of its country's interaction with the history of the world. A human being is able to conceive that the world changes, while at the same time obeying principles. And those principles define what is the economy. The main principle that I shared with Lyndon LaRouche is that real wealth is the increase of potential and relative population density, the capacity of society to host more and better educated people." So you see there's a quality of discussion, a quality of intervention. Now, Harley Schlanger was also out and about. Many people know him from his very popular morning updates. He's done a whole bunch of media outreach this past week with the new LaRouche organization white paper titled Worse Than Treason, the Actual Motive Behind Russiagate. And we note now, we'll put in there right now so that you're aware, this white paper has now been translated into German, French, and other languages and is circulating among high-level people. So among his activities this week, 2 programs where Harley presented this white paper include an hour-long program with John O'Loughlin, where Harley described how the white paper is a weapon aimed at the heart of the enemy, and he presented the report's content. Also, he was on a half-hour interview with WAAM Detroit Ann Arbor Radio this past Sunday. The host, who you see here, Dave Janda, had just read the paper and asked Schlanger to go through it. The host said, "This is a brilliant report, and your discussion makes it even more compelling." He called on his listeners to get on the phones and call the White House. He said they should tell Trump, "You must back Gabbard, meet with Putin, and use this report to defeat the traitors who are trying to force you into more wars." So tonight, we saw an international blitz of organizing activity by the LaRouche movement, one fist across 6 continents, with activity in Germany, France, Mexico, Russia, Brazil, the United States. We also saw the LaRouche movement take the lead in the moment of potential of this week's upcoming Alaska summit by putting on the table a proposal that had not yet been considered, a proposal that is not yet popular. In the video description of tonight's battle report, we include links to full videos of many of the interviews, TikToks, statements that you heard tonight. You can watch these, you can circulate them. We include, most importantly, links to Helga Zepp-LaRouche's call to the heads of state, Trump and Putin, that the Bering Strait tunnel project is the perfect war avoidance policy, and links to the package of executive intelligence review articles detailing the project. Also, a link to a very fun video presentation, a proposal made by Russia's Council for the Study of Productive Forces about the Bering Strait project. And this video won the grand prize for innovation at the Shanghai World Expo in 2010. Take these materials, educate yourself, and then run with them. Organize up a storm, especially in the next 2 days between now and the Friday summit, but of course moving forward from there as well. And please send in your reports. We want to hear on the organizing activity, whether it went well or maybe not so well. It's still very important to hear from you. You can send these reports in to info@laroucheorganization.com.